Hey there, superstar. Welcome to What is the Myers-Briggs Personality Test Part 1, Origins, Overview, and Background. Let's go. In this video, I'm gonna give you the lay of the land about the Myers-Briggs inventory. It's not called a test, by the way, it's called an inventory. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the background, who developed it, what philosophy it's based on. I'm gonna talk about things like, is it scientific? Is it reliable? And once I complete this background video, I also have videos 2 and 3 where I'm gonna dive into how to use Myers-Briggs, how to interpret it, and even talking about some of the advanced concepts that I learned when I became certified as a Myers-Briggs practitioner. Are you ready? All right, first and foremost, super important to understand that the Myers-Briggs is just a tool. A lot of times people get nervous. Maybe it's because people use the word test, which you're not even supposed to use when it comes to Myers-Briggs. You know, tests make us nervous. We feel like there's a pass, a fail, a good grade, a bad grade. Myers-Briggs is not actually a test. It's called an inventory or an assessment. And it's intended to help you gain greater clarity about yourself. But it's not intended to tell you that you're good or bad or anything at all. In fact, there is no good result, there is no bad result. All results in Myers-Briggs are neutral. All personalities, all 16 of the personality types are valuable. They all have their gifts. They all have their challenges, as we'll talk about in video 2. And ultimately, every result is a great result. And that's going to be important. I'm going to talk about that later, probably in video number 2. So ultimately, why is Myers-Briggs a valuable instrument? Why is it something that you may want to use in your own practice if you're a consultant or a coach or a therapist of sorts? It's valuable because it can help you really understand yourself, first of all, which is really helpful in helping you get along in the world. And it's also really valuable in helping you understand others. I found that when people understand their own type and are able to really value others, then we can resolve conflict more easily, we can work together more effectively. Life is just better. And one of the things we want to be careful about with Myers-Briggs and with any inventory, with any personality test or assessment, is not to let it pigeonhole us. One of the things that I love about Myers-Briggs, and something that surprised me when I became certified, 15 years ago, something like that, was that they have a fundamental philosophy, which is that the only person that can type you is you. And so as a practitioner, I'm not supposed to type someone or to look at someone and say, you are this way, right? It's not meant to be the end of a conversation, I like to say. It's meant to be the beginning of a conversation. And in fact, the Myers-Briggs inventory, when you get your quote unquote test result back, it's not considered a complete result. It's not considered an actual result until the person who's been typed agrees with the result. In other words, the only person who can type you is you. You have to decide, this type feels aligned, this feels true, or no, it doesn't. Let's look at these other types that are nearby and see if they're more aligned, more appropriate. So what the Myers-Briggs is not intended to be predictive. You're not supposed to, as a practitioner, give an inventory to someone and say, oh, they'll be good at this job or they'll be bad at this job. You're not supposed to use it for hiring. That's considered an ethical breach or a violation of what the inventory is intended for. It's not intended to keep you out of something. It's just intended to give you insight into something, if that makes sense. So now, before I dive into the background and what the test is based on and who created it, do want to invite you to take a moment and subscribe to my channel. I have hundreds of videos at this point that I've put together over the years, and I'm producing more every single month. I usually upload a video a day. So if you want to hear more about personal development, business development, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and maybe even throw me a comment below. All right, let's keep going. Quick background, the Myers-Briggs is actually based on the personality theory that Carl Jung came up with many, many decades ago. Carl Jung, you might know him, he was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, big into the subconscious, the unconscious drivers of personality. And he basically came up with the underlying theory of personality, the concepts of extroversion, introversion, sensing, intuition, perceiving, judging, like those basically those three sets of parameters. So, and then what happened was Isabel Myers and Catherine Briggs, her mother, became fascinated by Carl Jung's theory of personality, and they decided, I think during the Second World War, to develop the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. And then they spend the next 20 years iterating it, perfecting it, testing it, measuring it, and basically helping turn it into a valid scientific instrument. Myers-Briggs is a little bit controversial. There are some people who don't like it, they don't agree with it, that's fine. And it's the #1 most popular used personality instrument or test in the entire world. So, and it's been around since the 50s, like in popular use since the 50s. Corporations have used it, organizations have used it, pretty much everyone's taken the MBTI. Now, that said, a lot of what you're taking, especially on the internet online, is not really a valid type, right? Because you're not having it administered by a certified practitioner like myself. And you might not think that's a big deal. With many tests, it might not be a big deal, or with many instruments. But with the Myers-Briggs, it actually is kind of a big deal because of what I said earlier, that you really want somebody certified to walk you through the self-assessment process. The instrument is just the first step of determining your type. And so later in the series, maybe in this video, I'm not really sure, I'm gonna tell you a little story about what happened to me when I took the Myers-Briggs, when I got certified, and how I was mistyped initially. That's a good story. Next thing everyone always wants to know is it scientific? Absolutely, it is scientific. As much as you can measure and scientify something as complex as a human personality. The fact is that in the people that publish the Myers-Briggs, CPP, their retest reliability is actually quite high, between like 75 and I think 90 or 95%, if I'm recalling correctly from my studies 15 years ago, but it's high. And by the way, I have a background in assessments and testing, psychological instruments from college. I was a major in psychology, and one of my specialties was testing and instruments like this. So I have a good background in this, and I'll tell you from my experience, this is a valid instrument. It has high retest reliability, which is what we're looking for. One of the parameters we're looking for in whether it's scientific. And because a lot of people are taking the test online, they're doing it to themselves, that's probably a really good reason why somebody might not have high retest reliability. So if you're taking it under optimal conditions with a certified practitioner doing the process the right way, then you'll see there's usually reliability over the years of when you take it. And I'll talk about this in video 3. There's also an evolution that happens of our type. And it's natural. It's called type dynamics. And I'll bring out my handy dandy flip chart and walk you through some of what that looks like too. Last thing everyone always wants to know, is there a free way to take the Myers-Briggs? Well, you get what you pay for. Like I mentioned earlier, there are tons of freebies online, and those are not considered valid or really as reliable as doing it properly with a practitioner, which is probably going to cost you some money. But it shouldn't be terribly expensive. So I'm sure you can find, if you really wanted to do it right, you can find somebody that'll walk you through the whole process. And I highly recommend doing it the right way, or at the very least, if you're going to do one of these free online tests, make sure that you read the descriptions of the types that are similar to yours or near to yours. Like maybe if you're not feeling so much this one, try to read 3 or 4 like around it, so that you can get a sense of maybe you're off by 1 letter, or maybe you're off by a couple letters or something like that. All right, so let's dive into, in the next video, meet me over in video 2, and I'm gonna walk you through the actual Myers-Briggs, all of the letters, what they mean, and how to start interpreting your results. I'll see you there.